Lawmakers and President Trump have promised to address rising drug prices. A hearing on Tuesday could be the first step to legislation to lower costs. Washington, 7 pharmaceutical executives faced a day of reckoning on Tuesday as they were challenged to justify high drug prices at a hearing of the Senate Finance Committee. The hearing will be political theater, but could also be a first step toward legislation to provide some relief to consumers, as lawmakers of both parties and President Trump have vowed to slow the relentless rise of drug prices. Senator Charles E. Grassley, Republican of Iowa and the chairman of the Finance Committee, set the tone for the hearing with a prepared opening statement in which he said that practices of the pharmaceutical industry thwart the laws and regulations designed to promote competition and the use of lower-cost generic drugs. "We've all seen the finger pointing," Mr. Grassley said. "Every link in the supply chain has gotten skilled at that. But, like most Americans, I'm sick and tired of the blame game. It's time for solutions." Mr. Grassley said he was determined to restore a proper balance between encouraging the development of innovative drugs and keeping prices affordable for consumers and taxpayers. Several themes ran through the prepared testimony of drug company executives, who were clearly playing defense. The main problem, they said, is not the high list prices set by drug manufacturers, but the high out-of-pocket costs paid by patients. The drug makers all said they wanted to be part of the solution because they wanted to be sure patients had access to their drugs. Several drug company executives suggested establishing a monthly or annual limit on a Medicare patient's out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs. Costs above any limits would be paid by insurers, such as private health plans or Medicare. At least 2 chief executives, Kenneth C. Frazier of Merck and Olivier Brandicourt of Sanofi, said they could support legislation that speeds the development of generic medications by requiring brand-name manufacturers to provide samples to generic drug companies. Generic drug developers need samples of brand-name drugs to show that a generic copy is equivalent to the original, but they have often had difficulty getting them. Ronnie Gall, a securities analyst who follows the drug industry for Sanford C. Bernstein and Company, said he doubted that drug companies would change their pricing practices because of the hearing. "This is a $460 billion industry," Mr. Gall said. "You think 3 hours of an orchestrated show before Congress will lead to different behavior? I don't think so. Pharmaceutical executives do want to be at the table for whatever comes next," Mr. Gall said, and that could eventually include discussions and negotiations on legislation. Richard A. Gonzalez, the chairman and chief executive of AbbVie, the maker of the top-selling prescription drug, Humira, said his company was open to working with Congress on efforts to address drug prices. The list price of Humira, prescribed for rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune diseases, has been widely reported as about $50,000 a year. Mr. Gonzalez said drug prices were a problem for some patients because their out-of-pocket costs were often a percentage of a drug's list price. For example, he said, AbbVie's drug Mavyret can cure hepatitis C and entered the market with a list price far below that of competing products, but the out-of-pocket costs are still too high for many patients to access this medicine. The senior Democrat on the Finance Committee, Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, accused the drug companies of profiteering and two-faced scheming, and he said the companies received a huge share of their revenues from taxpayers, through government programs like Medicare and Medicaid. Pascal Soriot, the chief executive of AstraZeneca, called the drug pricing market unsustainable because of the rising out-of-pocket costs. "These issues must be addressed urgently, and we hope to be a constructive partner in finding solutions," Mr. Soriot said. He endorsed the idea of a monthly or annual limit on a patient's out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs. Mr. Soriot said that the list prices of drugs did not reflect the true cost because AstraZeneca provided rebates and discounts to many health insurance plans and middlemen known as pharmacy benefit managers. On average, he said, the rebates, intended to secure a favored position on a health plan's list of covered drugs, are nearly 50% of our gross revenues in the United States. Likewise, Sanofi said that 55% of its gross sales were given back as rebates to commercial insurers, Medicare, Medicaid and other government programs. But the company acknowledged that patients often did not get the benefit of these price concessions. Patients, doctors and members of Congress have cited rising insulin prices as an example of what is wrong with drug prices in America, and Dr. Brandecourt, the Sanofi chief executive, was eager to defend the company's record. Sanofi has developed new insulin products that are significantly better and easier to use than those that have been on the market for decades, he said.